Good afternoon. Today, I'm pleased to present a topic of vital importance to the conservation of the natural environment in Chile. Over the next 15 minutes, we will explore the strategy put in place by a team to control the spread of an exotic invasive species in a protected area of the country. The species in question is rainbow trout, a fish native to North America that was introduced to Chile in the 19th century for sport fishing. Although its introduction was initially done with good intention, it quickly became a threat to the native aquatic ecosystems. Rainbow trout are known for their ability to adapt and reproduce quickly. These characteristics have allowed it to rapidly colonize water bodies throughout the country, displacing native species and causing severe alteration to aquatic ecosystems. Their presence in a protected wilderness area poses an even greater threat as it endangers the unique and fragile biodiversity that characterize this place. The under-controlled spread of rainbow trout in protected area was generated a range of environmental and social problems. First, rainbow trout compete with native species for available resources such as food and space to reproduce. This can lead to local extinction and endemic species, weakening to the biological diversity of the area and altering natural balances. In addition, rainbow trout are a voracious predator feeding on small aquatic invertebrates and juvenile fish. This predation directly affects populations of native species, which can have cascading effect throughout the food chain. As a result, there is a decline in the abundance of fish and other aquatic organisms, affecting not only wildlife, but also local fishers and communities that depend on these resources for their livelihood. The presence of rainbow trout can also generate social conflicts, and the management and control policies of these exotic species can affect the interest of different stakeholder groups. On the one hand, recreational fishers who like to fish for rainbow trout can resist measures that restrict their activity. On the other hand, local communities and conservation experts can advocate for the eradication or control of the species in order to protect the ecosystems and promote the recovery of native species. Given this complex scenario, it is essential to develop effective strategy to control the spread of rainbow trout in Chilean protected area. In this context, the team of experts to whom we will refer in this presentation has carried out a thorough investigation and follow-up work in order to design a global action plans to minimize impact. First, we will study the methodology to control the invasive species, and then we will examine the results of each method with its weaknesses and strengths. Finally, we will conclude on the best method to combat rainbow trout in the specific case of Lauca National Park.
So now I'm going to talk about the different methods in the document that are used to control the rainbow trout population. So there are three different categories of control methods for the rainbow trout. The first one is the chemical control, the second one is the mechanical control, and the third one is the integrated control. So we're going to break them down one by one. So the first one is the chemical control, such as pesticide, that can be used to control the rainbow trout population. In the document, the antibiotic antimycin is one product that can be used for this purpose. It has already been used in a national park in the USA and has proved its worth. They had the same problem of invading rainbow trout and used the pesticide antimycin to solve this problem, and it works. However, it should be noted that chemicals are more effective in closed water space, such as lakes, than in open water space, such as rivers. So now I'm going to talk about the mechanical controls. So in this case, this control method doesn't use chemicals, but it will reduce the rainbow trout population by physically removing them from the water. The trout are caught in large numbers to reduce their population. This method of control generally takes longer and is therefore less profitable. So here is a list of the different trout fishing methods. The first one is static net fishing, on the picture one. It works with an immobile net placed in the water, and it will act as a trap that captures the trout. The second one is the active net fishing. It's a moving net used to catch the fish while moving. So it's used in large water areas, such as large lakes. On the third pictures, you can see the electrofishing. And this method captures fish by means of an electric current field created in the water. This electric current in the water will temporarily paralyze the fish or change their behavior. The movement will also change and it will be easier to catch them. This method can be used to catch trout in large quantities. Therefore, with this method, all fish will be affected by the electric field. So a selection must be made afterward to avoid impacting other species. And the last picture is the sport fishing trout without release. And for the state, this is the most economical solution because private individuals will come and fish on their own. They are responsible for harvesting rainbow trout, and in addition, it remains a recreational activity that can attract tourists and develop the local economy. And now the third method of control is integrated control. So this is a set of methods applied at different times and places with the ultimate aim of reducing the rainbow trout population. So integrated control is a mix of different control solutions. The solutions used are very varied and not limited to a single action. It is a combination of all these different solutions that will ultimately have an effect on the targeted population. So there is a few examples of technique and method that you can use. The first one is the combination of the precedent technique, the chemical and the mechanical control. We can also encourage the development of native species or predator of the invasive species. You can also drain the watercourse to affect the species density and so the access of the resource. And there is a lot of other solutions that you can combine to reach your goal. And now we are going to talk about the rainbow trout monitoring method that has been used in this document. So according to the document, electrofishing was chosen. The advantage are that this method is effective and has a low mortality rate. It is therefore a practical and innovative method. However, as said before, the effects of electrofishing applies to all the fish in the lake. So when fish are caught, those that are not targeted must be released. There are different stages in the implementation of the electric fishing method. The first one is setting up the electric device and also fencing the area to prevent the fish from escaping. The second stage is the collection. When the fish are shocked, it's time to harvest them. And the third one is the weighting. You weight the total number of the fish that you collect. Then there is a visual and material examination of the fish. And finally, the selection is where you release the collect fish that you are not interested in, and you eliminate the ones that are invasive.
From the first part, we can see that there are three methods to reduce the impact, control, and mitigate the influences of invasive species: the chemical method, the mechanical method, and finally the integrated control. We will compare the strengths and weaknesses to discuss the solutions found. In the chemical part, we saw that different products could be used to eradicate truth, but there are many impacts on other fish species and microinvertebrates. This method therefore requires a very precise dosage to be able to touch the rainbow truth precisely without having too much side effect on the aquatic fauna. To summarize this method, chemical control is an effective method due to its ease of use, but it is a bit too effective. The use of chemicals must be used very precisely, and several species can be affected at the same time, which would kill the aquatic fauna. So it's a local method to avoid the disastrous consequences. For mechanic control, there are several methods such as laser or sport fishing, electric fishing or net fishing. For the method of sport or leisure fishing, it is one of the most effective but also ethical methods because only rainbow trout are caught and the others are released. Good fisheries management can have a considerable impact, but it will not be able to remove all invasive trout. In addition, there is a regulation that imposes protection of native species, but the method is limited in certain areas. As far as electric fishing is concerned, it is the most widely used method to block trout migration and to remove large parts of the invasive species at once. This part is the first step before using the chemical solution to kill the last fish present. This method is therefore used for its long-term effectiveness and its ability to select fish species. But this is the long and expensive method that cannot be practiced everywhere. Finally, for the integrated control with the coupling of two techniques, mechanical and chemical, so we spoke previously, they are expensive methods that require a lot of time and staff to remove most of the fish. According to some studies, after this method, native populations can quickly recolonize the natural environment. It is also the only method for the moment that allows the localization of native species after eradication. In return, it is a costly and rather local method. For integrated control, there is still one method that is a flow. It is used on some dam and a natural cascade. It's an effective method to avoid reproduction with trout eggs. This technique is effective, but only below dams and waterfalls. And there are not identified consequences on other species, and the method only works on specific location. So, conclusion, the Lauca National Park has a rich aquatic fauna with many fish species and many lakes. The high-altitude lakes of a local national park are also inhabited by fish such as rainbow trout. Rainbow trout was introduced into some lakes of the park for sport fishing, but can also be seen in its natural environment. It is the species of fish that cause problems. In the case of the Lauca Park, The technique used was electric fishing as well as sport fishing. Electric fishing is an effective method to control and reduce the predatory impact of trout on the limited resources of protected areas. It works well, except in protected area where fish collections can adversely affect critically conserved bird populations. The method to measure the control of the rainbow trout species in this case works very well, but we need to check if different impact parameters change over time, be able to measure the different parameters before and after the introduction of the invasive species in order to compare the different changes. It could improve the proposed strategy by adding a chemical control to improve the process, but also use another method in lakes that has a flora full of birds. These birds depend on the fish in the lake, and eliminating them will lead to the extinction. Chemical control would also be devastating to birds because it would poison them. So intensify sport fishing in area where there is a high density of birds to allow the creation of a cycle. There are several lakes like the Colacolani and Parinacta in Lauca Park, and some lakes are not as full of birds as others. If sport fishing change place at different times of the year, the fauna can regenerate and the intrusive species will decrease over time. So this is the bibliography with all the resources we used during the presentation. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.